everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Dice Before Dishonor. When last we left our cavaliers and one fly samurai, you gentlemen had experienced mounted combat. And even though you did not save the proverbial person in distress, actually watched the poor lad being ripped apart and murdered by a giant scorpion, at least you avenged him and are now about to claim your reward. But what's this? Did the sword actually speak to you? It did, demanding you to identify yourselves. But before we get to that, the scene shifted to Lord Samish Gildervarth, who seemed to either be having a stroke at this twilight hour, or perhaps something separate and very special was about to happen to him. Lord Varth, as I said before in our last episode, twilight, in that moment of twinkling at the end, all lines and shadows seemed to elongate and flattened. A single beam of sunset light illuminating an altar amongst the ruins of the crumbled shrine once dedicated to Sarenrae. You feel drawn, your footsteps leading closer to it automatically. And as you get closer, you hear voices. Things become darker around you in the shadow of the half wall, and you are taken back in time in your mind to a very dark and stormy night. Lightning flashes and thunder clashes. Rain pours down upon the ancestral estate situated in Blackwater. The Gildervarth family crest adorns the gates and the front door of the mansion. A large barn and stables reside to the side. These men, this family, these ladies are of culture, are horse breeders, and are very proud of their wealth and position in society. Lord Varth, the family crest is what?
It's a rooted tree over an open cave mouth with two horses on either side, of facing away from it.
Awesome. The family crest, a large cave-like abstract art entrance with a large tree in front, centered. Two beautiful rearing horses either side of this, marking the Gildervarth crest of Blackwater, adorns the front gates. The scene sweeps in under the storm towards not the mansion, but to the stables, past them all the way to the back, where two young boys, barely 8 and 10 years old, stand shivering in the pouring rain, peering, hoping to get a glimpse at a troubling scene within the stable. The scene first enters the stable, a pregnant mare, writhing in pain, whinnying in outbursts, in a very troubled labor of delivering a foal. Master of the estate, Lord Dartwain Gildervarth himself, stands looking troubled next to the groom master and several attendants. The groom master, arms deep in blood, 2 hooves, no, 3, 4, barely protruding from the back of the struggling mare. My lord, the foal has turned. We are trying to rectify the situation, but I fear she might have lost too much blood and may not make it. Solemnly, the lord nods, understanding the situation. Then looks up at the window, thinking possibly he heard a small yelp. The scene rushes back out the window, the older brother covering the younger brother's mouth. Be quiet, you idiot! Father will catch us. I will merely get a scolding, but he is sure to tan your hide. He told you to stay away from the stables.
No. Father said I could watch as well. Not just you. It's my foal, after all.
It's going to be dead soon. Victoria was a fine horse, I suppose. Father's favorite. Why should you get the foal, even if it does live? I'm the eldest. I'm entitled.
Samish kind of elbows him, try to get in front of him and says, "Well, Father likes me best."
Not anymore. Not since those books and scrolls you had hiding under your bed. A goddess, the forbidden goddess. You know that type of worship is banned throughout Taldor, that you would bring Father in our family disgrace if even so much as a manservant or maid found them. Lucky for you, I found them first. And you know what?
What?
If the foal lives, she's mine. The boy cruelly laughs and shoves his brother back. Or I'll make sure they are delivered to Father's study first thing in the morning, when your goddess's sunlight breaks through his southern window. The small boy can do nothing but burst into tears. Sorry. What's the matter, Frank? You can't cry on cue.
I can't cry on cue.
I wish you guys could see this at home. He's holding up like a nasal spray teardrop to his eye. Yeah. Forcing the tears out.
Well, those papers were given to me. Shut up! You're not supposed to have them. And it's not true. Father won't care if I have them, and he still likes me better. So suck it, brother!
I shouldn't have ate that. I'm sorry. I'm laughing.
Bastard.
Well, your goddess isn't here now. Look, and he points at the storm-ridden sky. She can't see you. She can't help you. Not if you climbed all the way up to the second-story window and yelled your little guts out, praying to her. The foal may not make it, and Father's favorite horse, Victoria, is surely going to die. And he's going to be mad and mad at you. Worse if I deliver those papers. Now promise me the foal, brother. Swear it on your honor.
Samish kind of looks at his brother and then looks up at the sky and says, "The gods hear everything. I will go and I will yell to the gods and she will hear me. And that foal will be mine because Father said so, and it won't be yours because you're a bastard." And he turns and walks out.
Thankfully, or unfortunately, you can still hear the crying whines of the mare. It's not over yet. You still may have time.
Take off running.
Okay.
Just like I said I was going to do. Upstairs, as high as I can get, just to prove brother wrong.
Running, tears in your eyes. Racing up the stairs, heading to one of the guest rooms that have the largest windows that you can manage to open. Wrestling it and prying it open with a piece of wood laid nearby from the fireplace that has remained unstoked and unlit for some time. Not a lot of people have come to visit the Guild of Arts over the last few years. Not since your mother has fallen ill and passed. But you can't think about that now. Young Samish wrestles the window open, and during the lightning and thunderstorm and thick clouds, in the now driving rain.
So he, throws open the windows and he kind of leans out, looks up, and he says just this broken parts of a prayer that he kind of remembers, because he's only read through it a couple of times. And he kind of says solemnly, almost desperately, "It is a sacred duty to foster new growth, nurture things, and work with rebirth and renewal. I ask you, Sarenrae, bring me hope. Please, Sarenrae, let this birth happen."
Suddenly, the storm almost looks like it's about to recede. The driving rain shifts and becomes lighter, and almost willing it to happen. Do the clouds part? You're not sure, because suddenly you find yourself tumbling forward out the window, being shoved by hands behind you, hitting the second floor eaves once, and then the ground, finally breaking your fall the second time with a sickening thud. In a daze, before you slip from consciousness, looking up from the front of the mansion's drive, you're sure of it. The rain recedes, and the clouds go from black to lessen, revealing not a sun, but you're pretty sure you can see a few stars. in what is destined to be a fateful night for you. Lord Varth, upon this point, you found yourself reaching the shrine. You are laying down on the ground next to the altar. You don't know how you got here. Your senses are back with you.
So kind of coming back to my senses somewhat. I look around. I mean, does anyone else seem to notice this kind of cut scene?
Nope.
Or is time kind of suspended for this time?
They've reacted as if you've just decided to let them deal with the sword and you've just wandered over to inspect the altar. You've actually walked around in a daze. You've walked around behind the altar and laid down. You pop your head out over the side of the altar and, they look at you curiously with the odd glance, but they're still in deep discussion about what to do with the sword.
I, grab the edge of the altar and kind of haul myself up wearily.
Okay, as you touch the altar itself and pull yourself up, a feeling, almost a voice in your head says, "Now, see more." And you are instantly thrust back to that scene. A small while later, servants finding the young Samish crumpled on the front drive, calling for help. The Lord himself cradling the young Samish in his arms, practically abandoning the foal, calling for healers, calling for help. The Lord turns to his reliable eldest son.
"Caldwin, quick, to my study. The vials at the top shelf. Grab them. Be quick."
"Yes, Father, at once." Caldwin runs up the stairs, so happy to serve his father, grabbing a footstool, climbing to the tallest shelf on the book study, and, with trembling hands, grabs 3 vials. The first he actually knocks, and it smashes upon the floor. Cursing his ill luck, reaching back, grasping simultaneously a vial in each hand, jumping off of the footstool and racing back down to his father, presenting them proudly. "Father!" His father takes the 2 vials, turns them over, and identifies their contents, and then becomes angry at his son.
"Fool! I told you to bring all 3 to me to ensure that I had the correct one. Samish may die tonight because of your incompetence."
The young boy balls his fists up, looks furious at his father. Then, with no other choice, Lord Gildervarth turns to his servant and says,
"Quickly, bring me those Kadiran maids. I know they have skills. Go."
"But, Lord, surely if they worship the forbidden goddess, think of your family."
"I am thinking of my family, damn you." Kind of gives him a rough shove.
"At once, my lord." And he scrambles to his feet and heads off, a short time later returning with 2 maids. One quite young, in training, has barely seen 15 summers. The other, possibly a relative, over 40 summers past. They come, heads bowed. Lord Varth cradles his son in his arms, picking him up off the driveway and bringing him inside out of the rain, and laying him in the parlor on a couch. The manservant returns with 2 Kadiran maids, one barely past 15 summers, the other well over 40. Turning to the rest of his staff, he says,
"Leave us. Wenches, to me quickly. Close the doors.
Yeah.
I'll have no rumors of what happens here now."
Everyone leaves, and then Lord Varth's tone changes as he addresses the Kadiran maids directly.
I know what you are and what you practice. I've seen you give signs to each other. Do something for my son. I know you can. Please."
The 2 maids hesitate. "But, no, my lord, we can't, we mustn't. Within the borders of Taldor, it's sacrilege."
He puts his hand on Samish's chest, still feeling the faint rise and fall, and says, "Samish is the last line. Don't let my family line die out because of his clumsiness. My sons are all that I care about. and Samish is the last of them. You have to help me, please.
Hesitantly, the elder turns to the younger and says, "Go to my bedchamber. Under the bed, in an old Bible of Arden, you will find a carved-out niche. In it is a vial. I will need it. Bring it to me, child." The young maid nods and scurries off, returning with a vial. The old woman digs deep into her bodice and pulls out a symbol of a maiden, wings and highlighted sun behind, arms spread high, the symbol of Sarenrae, and takes an oil from a vial and anoints the child's head, dousing his lips, his nose, his eyes, and spilling a drop or two of the liquid into the boy's mouth, and then begins to pray. For 2 nights and 3 days, the maids and Lord Gildevarth stand vigil over young Samish. Each day, the sun breaking through the parlor windows, lighting the boy's face as the maids stand in prayer, and each night Lord Gildevarth himself standing vigil, waiting, hoping. Lord Varth, you finally stagger to your feet, taking a step back, examining your hand as almost a shock went through it, touching the altar.
Staggering back from the force of this, and my hand kind of reaches up and touches the big old scar that he's got across his brow and up in his hairline, kind of feeling it. He's just kind of stunned that he can feel the power of Sarenrae here in this altar still, even though it looks crumbled.
In your unconscious state, this knowledge was unknown to you. And now, a vision from Sarenrae, perhaps? Or perhaps you overheard the entire 3-day event. Not quite certain, Lord Varth. But here in Galorian, in the wind-swept hot deserts of Quadria, fate seems to edge one on a little bit faster, a little bit stronger.
Brave adventurers, I am Soldier's Glory, servant of the noble bastions of the last Aslanti. Identify yourselves.
Again, the sword speaks.
So, on hearing the sword speak, Winston, a look of awe and curiosity spreads over Winston's face, and he hurriedly scrambles off of Barclay's back to get a closer look. Oh, by the bearded balls of a basilisk! The sword speaks! Apparently this weapon of Alcasti is much more legendary than we were told.
A sword that talks. Seems kinda wasteless if you ask me. Last time I checked, the sword's only good for cutting things.
I demand to know your ancestry and your allegiance.
He straightens himself up, puffs out his chest, brushes all the fragments of food that have gathered over the course of the day, a couple little bits of scorpion. I am Winston, of Taldor, Order of the Paw, protector of the halfling settlements.
I'm Bartholomew Dulldagon, of the Dulldaggans of Opera. Been responsible for producing the most feared warriors and knights that all of Taldor has seen in the past 150 years.
My name is Leon Vinmark, and I am also a protector of the realm in Opara. You being able to speak would certainly be a bonus to aiding towards the redemption of the Honorary Alcasti's line. More talking to Winston than the sword.
After hearing people start to begin their lineages and honorifics, I'll say that I am Lord Samish Gildervarth, blood of the Grand Prince Stavian, second commander to Darthwain of Gildervarth, and inheritor to the Blackwater Estates, and Taldwin's Knight of the Sword.
Turning to Winston, wow, I feel like kind of a nobody now.
Yeah, I would say, and that's why Frank has +7. Well done, sir.
We were charged to return you to the rightful bloodlines in Opera and reclaim the Aldasti's honor.
Yeah, I grow tired of this. Nagrath, how are your wounds? Yeah, and with that, I go to Nagrath and check on the wounds that he received from the scorpion.
So, gentlemen, Winston, and Gildevarth and Leon. Who's the lead on this? Winston, because he spoke first? Yeah.
No, I'd say that we would both defer to the Lord.
Okay.
But of course, we'll pipe in our own 2 cents, nodding in agreement.
All right. Well, may I have a diplomacy check, please, Mr. Varth? Oh, sorry, Lord Varth. And another from Leon, as well as...
So, rolling diplomacy, 1d20 plus 15, 32.
Oh,
Plus
wow.
6.
Smash.
Oh, yes, the full...
Oh, you have to add 4 for me alone.
34.
Because
Yeah.
I'm a halfling, and I'm
I
very
mean,
helpful.
Yeah.
he specifically
better
wanted
than
to be
anyone
another.
else.
That was his whole thing.
Geez. 38.
I may not
always good
be
to
a
keep you
general.
around,
I
even
may
if he
not be a
slows down.
lord. But damn it, I'm a helpful little sucker.
If only he could carry them.
It is.
And I do a very good job at keeping myself round.
He's worth his weight in groceries.
I want to be helpful. It's like a team feat thing. Cavaliers share things. Team feats, horses, women. Deal with it. All right, gentlemen. The sword finally pipes up after everyone's introduction.
You seem to be honorable men. You may refer to me as
up.
Glory.
Put me in your hand.
I will aid you in this endeavor to restore the Elcasti name.
And there's much rejoicing.
Yay.
Now wield me! Yep. You notice that there actually is carved into the pommel and crosspiece the symbol of a Pegasus taking flight, the Elcasti crest.
I reach forward, hands curl upon the fine tooled leather of the pommel and hold the blade aloft.
Just put a tree in the middle, add a couple horses, those wings, look like a cave. And it's Blackwater. There we go. There you go.
Oh, well, I'm sure they won't mind if I retool that. Tree, yeah, there. Well, it's half right. It's half right. So sword in hand. Obviously this weapon, this artifact belongs with the Elcasti.
Okay.
So I mean, don't plan on really wielding it. So I'll tuck it back into its scabbard that the boy was carrying. Walk over and get it.
Okay.
And in the meantime, Winston will start preparing the body for transport and paying respects to Desna.
Kind of nod to Sir Winston.
All that fun
He may
stuff.
not have been a knight in title, but he was a knight in blood and honor.
Even the sword pipes up.
Ayif has more backbone than some generals I've known.
And I'll lay the sword on the boy's chest as Sir Winston's getting them all prepared.
Yeah. So Winston, once he's tucked up, cleaned the boy up as best he
Realizing
can,
that Winston
and
will have a
wrapped
bit of
him
trouble
in-
with the body on
he'll
his own helps
slug
lift.
him. Well, actually, he won't carry him over. He'll leave him where he is. Go cart up Barkley and bring Barkley with the cart to the boy, and then load him from there.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll help too if they need it. Just to make sure that it's very, honorific and proper.
With somber tones as twilight starts twinkling into existence.
Oh, twilight has come and gone. Now the shadows of
It is
darkness
cooler, though.
fall upon the desert.
Oh no.
Well, I suggest we make camp here for the night. Traveling the desert's never a fun thing when you're guiding by moonlight.
Yes, it gets cold in the desert at night, gentlemen, pulling your blankets around you as cloaks more than laying on the soft sand as a bed. Making a fire in the campsite you found, setting watches, and the desert is happy to meet you. No encounters. This evening we've encountered tonight, staring into the flames, lost in your thoughts, the boy's body wrapped and decomposing softly, not a few feet beyond. tending to your mounts, your own wounds, the horse's wounds. And then the break of morning. Lord Gildervarth, as the very first sun rays anoint the land in this dark Quadirian desert, you find yourself awoken immediately, sitting bolt upright, as almost you had heard a sound. You get to witness a beautiful sunrise.
I'll bolt upright, shock kind of washing over me. That bastard Caldwin pushed me.
And end of episode. That's right. I just want to leave it like right there. And we're A day's ride returns you to Omosh and the city where now a mother and daughter lay grieving, overcome by the news that their poor son, Aif, who absconded willfully with the sword, has met his doom. However, as promised, and probably wanting no part of the sword that was the cause of the boy's death, they will honor their word, and they relinquish the sword to you, taking the boy and preparing for a funeral, which will happen in a few days hence. What do you guys do?
Well, I've got I wouldn't call it a newfound interest, but just being exposed to all of the, the Saren Ray practices and stuff like that. I like to help as much as I can, try to glean, more of the teachings, since it's a little more easier to acquire here than it is in Taldor.
Not believing that the contact with the shrine actually bestowed a revelation upon you, showing you 3 days of knowledge that happened around you without you actually being aware and unconscious?
Well, I mean, totally.
Well, considering such
Cavalier stubborn denial. Cavalier stubborn denial. No, it was hallucinating. It was a desert mirage.
It couldn't be that. It's just a recollection. It couldn't be the hand of the goddess.
Bartholomew is very stingy with the water rations.
That's kind of what I was thinking I would do.
Oh, you're staying in Quadria?
Well, the only real reason that I'd come down this far, was just to kind of see what was going on in these lands where Saren Ray is a bit more accepted.
You were eager for this sword quest because you knew it would make you cross the border, home to Saren Ray, sure.
And now that I'm here, I'm a little less inclined to move. To continue the leg up north. I'd like to stay down here a little bit longer if I could.
Sure.
Learn what I can.
Yeah.
If the lady would be willing to allow me to help, that is.
Yes. They think it's quite honorable for at least one of your number to stay behind and give eulogy and, especially the man that witnessed his last moments. So, now the scene changes. Hours later, perhaps another day, at the front gates of the estate, wishing your companions well. Bartholomew a wave and already heading up the trail back to Opera. Any parting words from Leon and Winston? Or you just want to say, I assure them I will join them in a few days hence back in Opera,
Best of luck to you.
Yeah, this parting of ways isn't permanent, friends.
To her safe home.
I fear that I would be just a 10 day or so behind you. Safe travels.
Winston?
Yeah, so we'll pass tidings on to Romero for you.
Right. The bulk of the party
And
rides
see you in Opara.
northwest, returning across the Jarloon River, past the Borden Wood, through Zirmar, through Artalaka, to Eliskilp on the river's edge of the river Porthmus, which divides the heart of Taldor, gaining passage on a ship, returning to the port city of Opara. Meanwhile, back in Kadira, Lord Gildevarth, the somewhat wealthy noble family, makes you comfortable, are happy to have you as their guest, though they seem to keep you at arm's length.
Okay.
Sometime after the funeral, a few days pass, you're sitting alone and can't help to wonder where the father figure is. No sign of him. You've learned that the mother, daughter, and former son lived alone here for nearly 2 decades. The family wears black with a bright orange band, yellowish stripes running through it, symbolizing Sarenrae, that they are in mourning. They wear their faith openly. Quite the contrast to what you're used to in Opara.
While I'm here, I would have kind of adopted that.
Okay.
Just an attempt to kind of fit in, as part of the local custom. And, the next time that we sit down for a meal or something, I like to kind of delve a little deeper, not prying per se, but just, trying to feel them out, as it were. I've noticed that you live here alone. Did your husband fall in battle?
They politely acquiesce that such conversation is not dinner quality. However, later, when the family adjourns for the evening to, lesser festivities, reading, and splits up, a servant comes for you and says, the mistress of the house will meet you in the front parlor. She's summoned you. Taking her up on her invitation, she sits, serves you tea and oiled flatbreads, and says, "Thank you for staying. You have helped me so much these past few days. For my son and my family. You are a man of strong character. You remind me so much of him," she says, looking wistfully towards a window. "I have decided to answer your questions. You deserve that as much. How can may I be of service to you, my lord?"
I fear I am actually in your debt. I've come down into your country as a guest, and you've shown me such great hospitality. I come seeking information about Sarenrae. She's touched me several times throughout my life, yet information on her is just so hard to find where I come from. She
immediately waves to servants to bring over. They disappear in another room and they bring over a big bejeweled ornate box that probably contains books and scrolls and things and sits on a table between you.
If it's possible, I'd like to know more about the goddess that's had so much influence in my life, whether I'd known it at the time or not.
Okay. Opening the box, the first thing she draws forth is a small stitched fabric doll. Could you show me where on the doll Sarenrae touched you? No, just kidding.
I point down to the nether. Wait, what?
Oh my god!
I feel like I'm in therapy.
Whoa, what's this doing in here? Puts it aside. Pulls forth scrolls that are within scroll cases and removing the caps and pulling them forth. She shows you that this is her sort of the personal inscribed history of the family, as well as a lineage to a greater family and clan and its religious aspects. So it's almost like the family decided to pen its own version of the King James Bible, but via Sarenrae. So my uncle on my mother's side was a cleric of Sarenrae, and when she studied at the Great Temple, she penned these herself. It would do me great honor to have you read them, borrow them. Would do us honor to pass them to you now, so that you can learn more about our magnificent goddess. And she hands you these scrolls that look like an acolyte's footnotes.
Okay. I'll, take them from her reverently and look at them briefly and say I would be honored to learn more about the goddess.
Now, these scrolls would be kind of like a textbook. And there's not only, it's like the cleric wrote on the board, not only do you take your own notes, hence copying out of said textbook, there are also personal notes. Not only from the great auntie, but from the half-blood prince, telling you to crush the bean with the flat of your blade and doing some really cool things for potions class.
Okay.
She leans forward, grasping your hand, and says, Lord Gildervarth, you are welcome to stay with us as long as you please. It is kind of him that he sent you to check up on me.
Excuse me? I'm afraid I don't understand.
She says, were you not sent by your father, or almost hopefully a gleam in her eye, your brother?
No. I mean, perhaps not directly. They, and what I'm trying to do is, not just like crush this idea that she may have in her head, because, obviously something's happening that I don't understand, but I'll just kind of set the stage to make it kind of ambiguous.
Well, she's not stupid. She knows you guys came for the Alcasti sword.
Mm-hmm.
But you've lingered, and she seems to know who you are, and like maybe the Acastis know the Gildervarths, and somebody like that or whatever. So, oh yeah, you go.
Yeah, I mean, so I'll say, Father did ask that I spend time in Opera, and that's where events led me to be here. So, in essence, yes, I mean, it was Father that put me here.
Mm.
But whether or not I was to convey any message, I'm sadly uncertain as to that, my lady.
What's your father and brother's name again?
Father's name is Dartwain.
And the brother?
And the brother's name is Caldwin.
And how does your father and Lord Cauldron fare these days? She asks tentatively.
Father's getting older. But he still has some life in him yet. He doesn't much leave Blackwater's estates. Caldwin runs the day-to-day of the horse breeding and the little businesses that occur there. I didn't quite get along with Caldwin, him being the older brother and such. So Father thought it would best that I go to Opera.
I see. Tell me, did your father ever remarry? Or perhaps your brother?
No, Father never remarried. He said that he had found the one and they would be reunited in death as they were in life. Caldwin is ever the bachelor. I'm often criticizing his lifestyle. He's quite the man whore.
A mixed reaction comes across her face. She seems happy that the news that neither man married, and this last bit seems to confuse her a bit. She withdraws her hand, and you catch amongst the rings on her fingers, one is a signet ring, and before she tucks it in the folds of her robe, you swear you saw something resembling a tree and possibly a horse or a four-legged creature on it. Brushing that thought aside as she interrupts you once again and stands, she says, "My lord, my home is yours for as long as you wish to stay. I hope these scrolls and knowledge of our goddess enlighten you. As I said before, I believe you are a good man, and you have done so much for my family already," she says. And my son, and, starts talking about family and son and daughter, and just kind of turns into tears. "Excuse me," and whisks out of the room. And leaves you alone with your scrolls and your thoughts.
Well, something seems afoot. I would have sworn that ring was familiar. he kind of sets that aside, still a little confused as to her interest and the signet ring. And then, the kind of, I don't want to say personal ambitions, but he does kind of have those scrolls in front of him. So I'm going to set to giving those a read through and seeing what I can discover.
Okay. So before heading back to Alpara in the 10-day, you give yourself at least a day or so in study?
Oh, yeah, at least. Yeah.
Okay. The scribe, a young acolyte cleric, you believe by the way the person writes, is quite studious, holds Saren Ray in the highest regard. The notes of the lectures of the clerics and, the other scrolls and things that they've copied into their own personal little Bibles, which is what's before you now, is meticulous word for word. However, there are footnotes and there are, as you read along, personal, I wouldn't say anecdotes, but personal thoughts.
Okay.
Talking about the religion and how it spread and its history. And there's a note about how, like, almost like a political note, how in the last, several hundred years, their rival, Taldor, worship has fallen into decline. And the scribe makes notes about traveling there and seeing what she can do to sort of reignite the spark. Little footnotes that indicate the person is interested in kind of doing the pioneer thing, spread the word to places where it has fallen off, or
kind of evangelizing.
Yeah. And you wonder if this ancestor, as she called her, actually got the chance, went to Taldor and roamed around and, that kind of thing.
Is there any kind of dates or anything like that on these scrolls or any indication of how old it might be?
Yes. About 20 years. And you have enough scrolls that kind of date about 5 years of study before they stop. The first, as you look through them, are the history and something you'd learn in a church. The rest are experiences, notes on medical practices and things from Saren Ray, blessings, prayers, that type of thing. Denotes that they went to a certain shrine or temple and learned the custom prayers there and what they wanted to add to it, and then travel to another place, all in the Kadira country. And then the last pages, or like the last date that you could find in a bulk of scrolls and pages, actually talk about places in Taldor where the worship once was, a temple or a shrine, and there's like a list of places that obviously they're listing that they want to go visit.
Mm-hmm.
But they never took this with them. They left it behind. Or if they did take it with them, eventually it came back to the family.
Okay. So, I mean, so I don't want to draw too many parallels here, but how old was the leaf?
About 15, 16 years old.
Oh, okay. So as I kind of, gather up my things, kind of getting ready to return back to my homeland.
Okay. Securing your gear, securing the scrolls. Yeah. Okay. Something that was caught. There's a couple of, let's say a scroll case that had a loose cap, and you flip it over the wrong way and it's like, crap, you did it again. And the scroll, the few scrolls that were in that one case come tumbling out on the floor. As you collect them up, you notice that rolled up and compressed in the page, they've kind of stuck together.
Mm-hmm.
And now scattered across the floor, and the backs of them rubbing on the floor itself, as opposed to you just flipping them over and opening them halfway, reading them to keep them together. Something comes loose. A different type of page, a different type of insert, as it were, that was just stuck in the scroll tube and pressed in the sort of Bible of scrolls.
Oh, what's this? Kind of unfurl it, open it up, take a gander.
It's a promissory note. It's like something you would take to a bank. It's written by hand. It's written on Taladian used paper.
Okay.
It names the family that you're currently staying with, particularly a few people. 2 ladies. Names are at the top. And it talks about certain funds being transferred, or, the Taladian, promissory note will honor funds. So basically, it's like a wire transfer, I guess you could say.
Like a payoff, or
Well, it is.
like a support somebody.
No, it's more like, say you wanted to, in the Galorian world, you wanted to write somebody a certified check. Here's a lump sum of money, and it's been certified by the Bank of Adabar. Here you go, and you go to any temple of Adabar, and they will honor this. Anyway, the interesting thing, though, is it is sealed with a crest, like the stamp, the family stamp at the bottom that's transferring the suns. And the seal is a faded black mark with a twig-like structure poking out the top and the bottom, and 2 silhouetted horses flanking it.
Oh my. Well, this demands immediate attention.
The Gildervar seal of Blackwater. Meanwhile, back in Opera, Bartholomew has gone ahead, gentlemen, to the west-northwest city along the Talodorian border on the Salon River, the port city of Casimir, to procure you guys a boat. Because upon receiving another letter from Romeo Casti, your companion, Lord Gildevarth, has yet to return. He is late. And you decided, what? You're going to wait for him? Or, you guys will dally in Opera a little bit longer till he shows up, and then take your troop to Casimir and hook up with Bartholomew?
I say we take a lazy countryside walk up to Casimir.
Well, anything that's got the word lazy in it piques Winston's attention.
Piques Winston's interest. So it's nice of you guys to take the slow route, giving him that one last chance to catch you guys. But the reason is thus. Another letter had come from your benefactor. It's from Romeo Casti, and it reads, "Greetings! My esteemed ancestor, Heronia Alcasti, led an army into the Verdurn forest to the north. No records remain of their victories, or even what they hoped to accomplish in the forest, at least not in Opera. The druids of the Wildwood Lodge, however, tell tale of a blackwood tree that remembers that time and has been granted the power of speech. I'm not sure I believe the tree worshippers, but we can't afford to let her battles vanish into memory. I've purchased safe passage from the Wildwood Lodge and hired some local guides once you get there. See if this tree can really talk, and if it has evidence of her victories. I am certain that you will find the compensation for your trouble worthwhile. Safe travels, Romeo Alcasti." So it seems you guys are on your own to get up into the Verdun forest, and the best way is by river. So, sending Bartholomew ahead to the last sort of civilized port at the bottom of the river before you guys enter the forest to procure yourselves a barge for you and your mounts, and the rest of you waiting. Days go by, the 10-day comes and passes, and still no Gildevarth. And so, politely, as you said, you decide to take the slow route. And by the time you get to Casimir, you find Bartholomew and an old pilot, stick rudder in hand. "Well, it's about time you got here. One more day and I just would have taken this big green fella by himself. Come on, get on board. Time is money. I could have taken quite a lot of cargo up and down the river if this chump hadn't paid me to stay here." What do you guys say to that?
He doesn't seem to be in the mood for talking, so we board. Or at least I do.
Who doesn't seem to be in the mood for talking?
Since the pilot doesn't seem to be wanting to talk very much, at least I hurry up and get on and secure Mukage.
Okay. Wait.
Now, can we make a bit of an assumption that in traveling with or whatever, the horses have gotten used to being around Barclay? Because you got to admit, cramming a bunch of horses onto a river barge with a wolf might cause them to go a little uneasy.
Yeah, like back at the church, when he went in without you and you guys were all like really weird, you kind of kept him back of the pack. And Bartholomew, through sheer will of intimidation and some awesome handling checks, was like the guy on your flank. But after traveling like a week down to Opera, you guys have day after day of slowly, I wouldn't say forcing, but acclimatizing the horses to the wolf's presence. You ride closer and closer. I wouldn't say you should like ride right next to them, but you know what I mean? They're less and less fidgety than they were. And I don't think they'll ever get used to the smell or him doing sudden movements in the middle of the night when they're all tied up. But they're certainly not acting, shall we say, agitated anymore. They've just got used to being around. So at this point, cramming you guys in a barge, sure, put Winston at the other end, but you know what I mean?
I'll position Winston at the opposite end, bust out a fishing pole, drop it in the water.
And so begins Winston's riverboat fantasy. We travel north up the Salon River.
Yep. Well, as we get going, and I'm assuming his sullen mood is going to change because he's in his element or whatever.
No, he's sullen. We're on the Salon River, and all the pilots here are very sullen. Sorry.
And I'll engage in some small talk about, the fishing, what kind of bait's good, what kind of fish is good to eat. Just small talk.
Just about anything works, though I wouldn't try any fishing once we cross directly into, the forest engulfs us, has more eyes and ears, and the spirits, fish, why even the birds seem to have a will of their own.
Sound advice.
None take well to poachers. Nope. Can't say they do.
So as soon as we start moving into the thick of it, I'll stow my fishing gear.
And we had 12 miles of fishing, and now we're done. All right.
And I'll also ask him if he knows anything about the tree or the guides he's leading us to.
Oh, the druids, the Wild Lodge druids are a wily bunch. I've made this run a couple times, but I keep to myself and obey their rules, and they pretty much leave me alone. I usually take the Verdun Fork to the right once we get to the Isle of Arnway, but can't say I've pulled up and stopped for any length of time along there. Boat, she has everything I need. Best to stay in the center of the river, travel quietly, not too much fuss. And as you guys literally just kind of get going and the forest engulfs the river, oh, my. Well, there's something you don't see every day. You guys see a school of brightly colored fish swimming all around the barge. They are really, really thick, and they make their way darting under the barge and straight up the river past you. But there's so many of them, it takes a while for this rush of traffic to go by that it's even caught the notice of the old pilot.
So, seeing the school of fish go by, his halfling instincts kick in, and he instinctively goes for the fishing pole, but remembering the wise words of the steerman, just nods solemnly, peers over the edge, and tries to get a better look at them.
Okay. Some stop and look kind of thing like they're looking at bait or whatever, but keep going. They come back at you right. I wouldn't do that if I were you. A beautiful sight. Something so simple, but uncommon in the natural world. Whether you're first level or 20th level, Order of the Paw, or a country yokel, or the dour, most evil city banker, you have to acknowledge a thing of natural beauty or an occurrence of wildlife that literally stuns you guys and takes your breath away. Just one of many things you'll see on this riverboat fantasy. And we'll see you next time.